Okay, hello everyone. We are going to begin practicing some two-dimensional drawing in OnShape. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a quick look at our drawing. So that drawing's got a few things, and there's a few things missing from it. And we're going to figure that out as we draw it. But we want to just kind of identify some of the key features here first. So our total height is 6 inches. And our total width, aside from this radius, is 12 inches. So we can almost start with a roughly 6 by 12 rectangle if we wanted. It's probably going to be easier, though, to just approximate the shape as we go. But you could do that. You could start with a rectangle. All right, so let's jump over to OnShape. Now, one of the things that we're looking at is we've gotten into OnShape and we want to start drawing this drawing. Again, looking back here, let's start off with the basic shape. So let's select a plane to draw on. Let's draw on our front plane. So I'm going to left click on it and then right click and hit New Sketch. And you'll notice it's not exactly looking straight at it. So one thing you do want to avoid in OnShape is looking at the edge of your drawing plane. So the best thing to do is click the corresponding face on the view cube. So you zoom in and look at the area that you're working in. Again, I can pan around if I want, holding the center mouse wheel down. I can scroll in and out to zoom. Alright, so let's see, where do we want to start? Let's start right here. We'll work our way around clockwise and just get all these basic shapes kind of put in, except for the two rectangles in the center of the object. So we'll start with our 4.25 and then we'll go down 6 inches. We'll put this little chamfer on here and I'll explain what that is as I go. We'll start with the line tool. And in no particular spot, just kind of approximate our distances here. Nothing needs to be super precise. Just kind of go like that. We're going for something roughly around 12 inches, but we've already gotten a little bit of that going here. That's about an inch. We'll kill our line tool here and we'll hover over the end of this, and you'll see like kind of a dotted orange line pop up, and we're just going to draw a little circle. And we're going to draw another line. We're actually going to kind of draw it from the center. That will sort of help us get that squared away. What we can do, make sure everything's lined up, kind of hover over the end of this line. Use that orange kind of guideline, sort of let things snap. We're going to come over here. And then to finish this up, again, just approximating the shape, we're going to use the 3-point arc tool. We'll click an endpoint, an endpoint, and then we'll just kind of bring our radius in wherever we kind of want it. And I think 2 inches kind of looks good. All right, so we'll hit escape. And we're just going to start trimming the circle out. So we're going to get rid of half of that. And we're going to get rid of that. So we've just got our basic shape. Let's take a look at our drawing again. So we've got our radius here. The center point is in line with the edge here. We wanted to make sure that that happened. Here we have an arc. It's not really labeled with any particular size and not much positioning either. We have one length here, but without a radius or a center point or any measurement like that. This could go to the end. It could be really short. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to kind of eyeball it. We have a 1-inch fillet here, which is a rounded off corner. We're going to use the fillet tool to create that for us. We come straight down. We've got an 1.25 chamfer. Now, without much explanation, there's two ways you can interpret that dimension. One is an 1.25 straight across and an 1.25 straight up, and assume that this is a 45-degree angle. Or sometimes, occasionally, engineers will label a chamfer what's called an aligned dimension, meaning that this distance is an 1.25 inches. So the hypotenuse of the right triangle that this creates is the 1.25 inches, and therefore the legs of the right triangle would be shorter. But we'll assume that it's the legs that are 1.25 inches and assume that it's at 45 degrees. So let's go in and start dimensioning now. So use our dimension tool, and we know a few things. We know that from here to here is going to be 6 inches. So we will just type in 6 and hit enter. You notice it adjusts automatically. That's called driven dimensioning. We know from here to here is 12 inches. We'll just type that in. Again, it'll automatically adjust a little bit. We know our radius here is 2, because if we look at our circle here, it says diameter of 4 inches, so our radius would be 2. And because there's no dimension labeled here, let's do a little math. So we've got a radius of 2, so there's 2 inches from here to here, and 2 inches from here to here. And then if we subtract our 4 inches that our circle comprises of when we go across the diameter, from 6, that leaves us with 2 inches remaining. Since it's not labeled, we're just going to assume that this is symmetrical. So we'll make this distance 1 inch, and then that distance will automatically become 1 inch down here. I shouldn't even need to adjust it, but we can just leave that in if we want. You'll notice it's grayed out because I've over-constrained that dimension. It's just kind of a reference. Going back up to our upper right, we've got 1 1/4 inches, or I'm sorry, 4 1/4 inches, 4.25. I was thinking of down here. And then to dimension the chamfer, we're going to go from here to here, and we're going to go straight down until it, we don't want this. Okay, so we're going to type 1.25. We'll do the same thing. We're going to click the 2 exact same spots, except we're going to bring our mouse to the right this time. We'll type 1.25. And then that locks this in at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so we're getting there. We're almost done. Let's look back at our dimensions here. So we've got our 1-inch fillet. Let's introduce that. So we're going to use the fillet tool. So that's right here next to the trim tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to click our 2 lines that we want to round off the corner between. You'll see it's giving us a radius of 1. To be honest, that's because I did that before. It'll actually default to a radius of 1/4, 0.25. So we just adjust it back to 1, and you'll see it'll give us exactly what we want. And we've got essentially the outside squared away. Now, a few things about that. One, it's not completely locked in. There is no dimension on this arc, so if I click and drag it, I can adjust that. I can also click and drag this and adjust that. So it needs something. So what we can do is we can lock in 2 things here. One is the radius, and I think 2 inches looks good. But again, this is not on the drawing. This is just something that I'm adding to lock in our shape. And then the other thing that we can add is a distance across our arc as well. Okay, sorry for the minor interruption there. Just had a visitor. So again, we could put a dimension across here as well, and that would sort of lock in the size and shape of our arc. So we're just going to go from point to point here in our arc, straight across, and might as well make it a nice round number. And that should, I believe, lock in everything. I may be incorrect. So this shape is now locked in. There's nothing that we can click and drag and change. So that's good. One thing you could do is you could anchor it to the center point if you wanted, by just adding some dimensions, but I'm not going to do that. So then let's take a look. Let's look at our inside rectangles here. So one of them is 1 inch by 2 inches, and it's 4 inches away from the corner. So this rectangle, and because it's up against the edge of our shape here, it's locked into place. This should not have any free movement. However, this one is missing 1 dimension from the top. So we'll add a dimension in there. And again, it's not specified in this sketch. However, that's something that you're going to need to do in class is identify undimensioned geometry that might cause you problems down the road. So let's add our 2 rectangles. So we'll do one here. Again, we're just approximating the sizes. We're not doing anything specific. We'll do one there. So this one I said was 2 inches by 1 inch. And then we were from here to here, it was 4 inches. So that's now locked into place. Then we've got this rectangle here, which is 3.5 by 1.5, and then there's a 1 inch space on the right side of it. So again, dimension 3.5. 1.5. We wanted a 1-inch space here. All right. So now, watch what happens when I try and move this piece of geometry. You'll notice the whole thing moves unless I move it up and down. That one rectangle doesn't want to go with everything. So the best thing we can do is just sort of add a dimension here. Again, I like to kind of make it a nice round number based on what it is. So that looks like 2 inches. We'll assume 2 inches there. And this whole thing is done.